Hello. Have you ever thought how much fish we eat in Britain? Well, it's a surprisingly large amount. Some of it is caught quite close to our shores. But to get the really big catches, you've got to go much further afield. Britain's distant water trawlers sail from 3 ports: Hull, Grimsby, and Fleetwood. And they sail to fishing grounds off the coast of Greenland, Iceland, and the White Sea. Today, we're going to set sail in a trawler leaving Hull, across the North Sea, up past the coast of Norway and the Lofoten Islands, round the North Cape, and into the White Sea, which is not far from the coast of Russia. Right, let's go. Hull Fish Docks. It's 6 o'clock in the morning, any morning. 9 or 10 trawlers are being unloaded. They docked last night. Their cargo? Fish. Fish caught in the cold and distant waters of Greenland, Iceland, or the White Sea. Within the next few hours, these fish will be auctioned, sold, and on their way to fishmongers all over the country. The trawlers themselves are in port for just 2 days, long enough to unload, restore, and refuel. Then tomorrow they sail again to catch more fish. Further down the dock are the trawlers which sail on this morning's tide, and their crews are coming aboard. These 3 sail in the trawler St. Dominic. She leaves for the White Sea in half an hour. Her engineers are already on duty, starting the engines. Last on the dockside is the skipper, Fred Gray. He collects his clean laundry, kisses his wife goodbye, and steps over the side. He wastes no time. He goes straight onto the bridge, calls up Huey, the chief engineer, and asks him for the engines.
Throw the engine in, please, will you? Thank you.
She's diesel electric, this ship. Close 2 switches, and she's ready to go. Fred Gray pulls the siren.
Well, we're on our way. 30-odd years I've been a trawlerman. I suppose I've sailed out the full 200 or 300 times. It's 3 or 4 weeks at sea, 2 days at home, and then off to sea again. That's the way it goes. Once we're out of dock, I put on speed. This trip we're going for the White Sea, and those engines won't stop for the next 3 weeks, so we're home again.
St. Dominic is just one of 200 distant water trawlers, which sail from the ports of Hull and Grimsby. By now, the skipper and crew have changed out of their shore suits. The voyage has really begun. Huey is the chief engineer, an important job making sure the engines run reliably for weeks on end. But others of the crew can take it easy for a while. That's Jack the cook. And someone else is sleeping off the 2 hectic days ashore. But by the 3rd day, work has started. The huge net must be got ready, the cables and ropes checked, the blocks and shackles greased, and 101 other things. The net comes out of store in sections. Each must be fitted and meshed to the others. By the 4th or 5th day, we're passing the Lofoten Islands, off the coast of Norway. By now, all the fresh shore bread is gone, and Jack has started baking. We've been at sea nearly a week. It's colder too, for by now we've rounded the North Cape, and St. Dominic is far north of the Arctic Circle. The skipper checks his chart and lays off a course for the bank where he'll shoot his nets. We're in the White Sea fishing grounds. He shouts down to the deck, and the real work begins. A basket is hauled up the foremast, the international signal that a ship is trawling her net. The heavy weights along the bottom of the net are swung over the side. Then, within a few minutes, the rest of the huge net follows. This can be a tricky time, for the skipper must make sure that his ship doesn't foul the net by drifting over on top of it. With the net over the side, the large wooden doors follow. These are angled against the water when trawling to keep the mouth of the net wide open. Finally, the brakes of the winch are eased off. The ship goes ahead, and nearly half a mile of steel cable with the net on the end is trawled out astern. Dave, the wireless operator, sends a message back to the office in Hull, nearly 2,000 miles away, giving the ship's present position. When trawling, she steams slowly through the water, so as not to tear the great weight of net which is dragging along the seabed behind her. After 4 or 5 hours of trawling, the skipper calls the crew.
Up trawl!
Up trawl, led by Bill the mate, the duty watch clamber forward. The winch starts the long business of reeling in the steel cables. Eventually, the doors come up. Then the net itself emerges. And 50 or 60 yards away, the closed end of the net rises to the surface. Now that's what the skipper watches for. He can see at a glance what sort of catch he's got. St. Dominic has a crew of 20, divided into 2 watches for duty, except for the skipper, who's always on duty. The closed end of the net in which the fish are trapped is called the cod end. By now it's been brought close alongside. The cod end is hauled aboard. pulls a slip knot. But it's a rather disappointing catch.
We can do better than that. And the cook thinks so too. If the fish aren't here, then I've got to find them. I'll try the Russian coast. I had a good catch there last trip. Maybe I'll get another.
Once a skipper has had a bad haul, he won't stay long on that bank. He'll steam 100 miles or so overnight to find better fishing. While the ship is steaming towards another fishing ground, there's the job of gutting to do. A good trawlerman can gut 5 or 6 fish a minute and keep it up steadily for hours on end. The gutted fish are thrown into the washer and then stored below in the fish room. By now, we're nearing the Russian coast.
When we get down near Russia, that's where I've got to be careful. I've got to take a bearing to make sure I'm outside the 3-mile limit. There's Russia. Go too close and they'll have a gunboat after us. And they'll get fined or wind up in a salt mine like as not.
The basket goes up and the work of shooting the trawl begins again. Once the cable is out, the crew can relax for an hour or two. Jack's cooking something special in his galley. Trawlermen have tremendous appetites and always want to know how long to the next meal. It's Sunday supper, always rather a special meal at sea. St. Dominic is a modern trawler, and her crew have a good deal more space in their mess room than in some of the older ships. Fred, the skipper, is on the bridge. Indeed, when fishing, he's hardly ever off it. Sometimes he'll only snatch 1 hour's sleep in 24. Day and night, he's interested in one thing only, searching for fish. Then they start gutting. That was another rather disappointing catch. After all, they'd been trawling that net for 4 or 5 hours. Fred checks the echo sounder. This is an electric instrument which draws a diagram of the seabed directly under the ship. One can see what the bottom looks like here. Sometimes one can even see marked the shoals of fish. Well, the skipper thinks that there are fish about. It's just a question of getting right over them with the net. So he shoots and hauls again. The fish they're really after is cod, which at certain times of the year gather in great shoals in these cold northern waters, usually on the banks or shallower parts. The cow skins, you can see, are to protect the cod end from chafing on the sea bed. This looks better. And there's more to come, because sometimes on one haul they catch so many fish that the cod end has to be put over the side again for the rest of the catch. It has to be emptied twice, And that's what's happened here. Now we're really on the fish. The net goes out again, and the crew gets down to gutting the last haul. The men wear rubber gloves when handling the fish. The cod's liver, there, is kept for making cod liver oil. The rest of the guts are washed over the side for the seagulls. And the fish slide down the chute from the washer to the fish room. Down there, they're packed in ice. Now it's calm, September weather. But in winter, with icy seas breaking over the deck, trawling can be one of the hardest and most dangerous jobs in the world. There's nearly 200 pounds worth of fish in that haul. Once a ship has found fish, the work never stops. As soon as the net has been shot away, there's the last haul to gut and get packed below. Sometimes the whole crew, both watches, will be called out to work together. Even so, the deck is still deep in fish when the next haul comes aboard. A trawler will usually spend about 11 or 12 days on the fishing grounds, and in this time she may shoot her trawl 50 or 60 times. And if things go well, she may catch 8,000 or 9,000 pounds worth of cod, haddock and plaice. But everything depends on the skill and experience of the skipper.
Well, it goes on like that for maybe a couple of weeks. And then, one day, I decide we've had enough and caught our load of fish. So it's home for Hull. And I can tell you that's the best moment of the trip. We all have a wee dram. We swing around to the south, get the trawl stowed aboard, and I tell you with the chief engineer not to slacken on those engines till we're home and dock. And Dave sends all a message. We'll be home on the morning tide a week today, weather permitting.
Weather permitting, but it takes a lot to stop a trawler, especially when she's on her way home. St. Dominic surges through at almost full speed, 13 knots. He isn't worried either. So that is the story of just one of Britain's distant water trawlers, the St. Dominic, now homeward bound.